Ananipigia aniambie nimesahau simu. Kumbe bibi ananipenda na mimi.
Ili kupata skiza tune hiyo ya missed call, kama skiza tune yako, bonyeza *811 *961 hash. *811 *961 hash.
Good evening, welcome to Prime Edition. I am Cynthia Nyamai. Now, a shake-up seems to be looming in Kemsa. That story and much more when it comes to news and in business. Young and industrious is what a lot of you have been asking for, and today we will be telling you a little bit more about urban farming. And in sports, we have all the action for you when it comes to Mozart Bet Cup. That and more coming up shortly, but first, let's have the highlights.
There is a case, and this was a D material. It was a B. We don't have any study case. So kindly, those are repeating on the false books here, with all due respect.
Passing the litmus test, Education CS rules out cheating in 2022 national examinations. Seeking closure amid growing numbers, Shakahola body exemption temporarily stopped for post-mortem exercise.
I hereby direct the CEO, effective tomorrow morning, all staff working for Kemsa, over 200 working from home, report to work tomorrow 8 a.m.
Comfort disruption. 200 Kemsa employees working from home for 2 years ordered back to base. Well, we would like to hear from you. Remember, you can send us your comments on our social media pages. Some of the stories that we have today are from your suggestions. That's on KBC Channel 1, on Facebook, Twitter, and also Instagram. Now, Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakumicha has instructed the over 200 Kenya Medical Suppliers Authority employees working from home to go back on Friday at 8 a.m. Nakumicha says that it is irresponsible to have workers paid for 2 years while not reporting to work physically. The CS, who inaugurated the new Kemsa board, said that no stone will be left unturned in fixing the institution that has been rocked by graft cases. She has called on investigative agencies to speed up investigations on persons implicated for action.
Thursday morning at the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority depot in Embakasi, Nairobi County, Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakumicha led the inauguration of the new Kemsa board. The new board, under the chairmanship of Irungo Nyakera, assumed office just 3 days after the previous board was revoked by President William Ruto over alleged impropriety. The board members are Hesbon Oyeko Omolo, Bernard Kipkirui Bet, Dr. Jen Masiga, and Jen Nyagaturi Mbatia. Dr. Andrew Mulo assumes office in acting capacity as the Kemsa Chief Executive Officer. He replaces Terry Ramadan, who was also suspended.
So I believe we have the right team to ensure that we assist the president to achieve his mandate, but most importantly, to ensure that Kenyans access health commodities as and when they need it at the most affordable price.
Nakumicha vowing to tighten the noose in the war against corruption at Kemsa by working with the relevant investigative agencies.
We have individual culprits who taint the image of this institution. I will not stop at anything. Even if it means sending home a whole department, I am ready to deal with it. Should you smell something that looks like corruption, please come and let me know. Whoever it is. And I said I might not have any other muscle, but I will name and shame anyone who is brought to my attention. Investigation is done, and they are known to have caused problems in this institution.
The Health Ministry boss directing that the over 200 Kemsa employees working from home resume work on Friday at 8 a.m., terming their absence as irresponsible.
It does not make sense. It is irresponsible to have paid over 200 people for 2 years, them sitting at home in the name of COVID. Yet we all go to our offices nowadays.
The previous board was terminated on Monday over maladministration and procurement of treated mosquito nets for vulnerable households.
Personally, have had discussion with Global Fund, and because of the limited timelines, because what we want to achieve at the end of this is that no Kenyan who needs to benefit from a mosquito net should miss it because of our inefficiencies. So they shall proceed with the procurement.
The Health Cabinet Secretary has exuded confidence that the new board will bring the much-needed change at the institution, even as investigations on officers implicated in graft continue. Nancy Okware, reporting for Prime Edition, Nairobi.
Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu has dismissed claims of exam cheating during the 2022 national examinations. The CS, who was grilled by the National Assembly Committee on the integrity of the exams, maintained the administration of the exams was above board. Meanwhile, the legislators are, however, recommending the establishment of a National Examination Regulatory Authority to also superintend over the Kenya National Examination Council.
Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu was in Mombasa County, where he appeared before the National Assembly Departmental Education Committee. The CS was on the spot as legislators queried the integrity of the 2022 national examinations. Machogu, however, dismissed claims of leakages, insisting that the process of administering the exams was watertight.
Is this reflective? Get this. Is this reflective of the script and the records of the land? Here is a case, and this was a D material. It was a B. We don't have any such case. So kindly, those are perpetrating on the false books, Chair, with all due respect.
CS Machogu and the Principal Secretary Bello Kipsang further told the Julius Meli-led committee that the ministry has proposed amendments to the NECT Act of 2012 to fully implement reforms in the examination administration process.
Because the moment we don't trust data and statistics, then it gets worrying. That is because if you must be able to explain anything, including how you won an election, it's based on data and statistics.
The ESCC has conducted investigations, and I think they have been.
Meanwhile, in Nairobi County, the Senate Public Accounts Committee was holding sittings. The committee is mulling over the idea of having the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission conduct an independent audit into the accounts of Wajir County. Senators want those who fail to remit county statutory deductions and bank standing orders amounting to 1.5 billion shillings prosecuted.
We are not going to have a bailout and give people golden parachutes to go and land in the Seychelles and enjoy life. Wajir will be bailed out, but those responsible must go to jail. And so that's why it's very important for that to happen. And I'm doing this because I understand the situation in Wajir. This is a highly marginalized area of this country. It has suffered historical injustices. And we cannot have a small elite from there worsen the situation.
Area Governor Ahmed Abdullahi appeared before the Moses Kajwang-led committee and was hard pressed to explain how money was embezzled.
it is my view that we should give you up to the end of the first quarter of the next financial year to update the Senate on measures that have been taken to settle the legitimate spending bills, but with priority being the statutory deductions and what is due. What is due to, is it due to employees or due from employees?
I'm giving myself 31st of July as an end date for all these exercises, and then at that point I can have determined, hopefully, what is verifiable and what is not verifiable, and then see how best to accommodate the repayment of what is verifiable and genuine over my term.
The committee issued an ultimatum to the governor to fast-track the payment of pending bills amounting to 7 billion shillings, failure to which the committee will recommend legal action, including freezing of the county bank accounts. For Prime Edition, I'm Gladys Mungai.
Parliament has been urged to fast-track the enactment of Learners with Disabilities Bill 2023 to pave way for persons with disability to access free and compulsory education. Labour and Social Protection Cabinet Secretary Florence Bor said this will enable children with disability from poor backgrounds get access to education.
The road towards recognition of the right to education for persons with disabilities has gathered momentum, with Parliament expected to debate and approve the Learners with Disabilities Bill 2023. Labour Cabinet Secretary Florence Bor said the Act will ensure children with disabilities acquire education.
Exclusion of persons with disabilities in education has huge ramifications, not only to the individual but also to the social and economic costs of our country. In view of the Sustainable Development Goal number 3 on quality education, achieving inclusive education is crucial.
The CS, who was in Nairobi for the launch of scholarships and career mentorship programs for learners with disabilities, said her ministry will work with the National Assembly to fast-track the passage of the law that will be a game changer for children with disabilities who often face challenges in accessing education.
These challenges vary from the cost of education itself to accessing built environment, as well as lack of adaptability.
National Council for Persons with Disabilities CEO Harun Hassan renewed calls for the government to consider setting special national examinations for persons with disabilities in both primary and secondary level,
with concerns of exams that are not well adapted, hence making them perform poorly. For example, for a student with visual impairment, diagrams, maps, and charts are a challenge. For the deaf, teaching in most cases takes place in Kenya Sign Language, but exams are presented in English. The effect of this is that they end up not qualifying for the career courses of their choice or end up repeating classes.
800 children with disabilities benefited from the scholarships worth 80 million shillings during the launch of the scholarship program.
As persons with disability, we should first of all accept our disability. And from there, we move forward. Yes? Na tunajijaza ya kwamba tunaweza, because it is possible.
Irene Mchuma Udim, the Prime Edition.
Kenya and Singapore have signed 3 memorandums of understanding in the areas of information, communication, and technology. The MOUs will enhance cooperation in cybersecurity, digitization of government services, and capacity building. President William Ruto noted that the partnership will scale up Kenya's investments, thereby reducing the trade deficit with Singapore.
President William Ruto Thursday played host to Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong at State House, Nairobi. Here, the discussion between the two leaders revolved around enhancing trade ties between Kenya and Singapore. The president saying Kenya will consider Singapore's strategic location in Southeast Asia as a gateway to its products.
We have invited Singaporeans, private sector, to consider investment opportunities in our transport and logistics sectors. We've also explored the potential of Singapore becoming a gateway for Kenya's agricultural products to the ASEAN region.
These moves send a strong positive signal to businesses and provide clarity and assurance on the cross-border transactions and investment.
He said South Asia, made up of 10 countries and with a population of approximately 670 million, offers Kenya a unique and massive market to sell its goods. He invited Singapore's private sector to invest in Kenya's underexploited transport and logistics sector.
The government of Kenya is going to work with Enterprise Singapore to make sure that they have what it takes to build the necessary networks and partnerships between private sector companies in Kenya, private sector companies in Singapore, and to ensure that we exploit the full potential of trade, business, and investment between our two countries.
Earlier, the two leaders held bilateral talks and witnessed the signing of MOUs on ICT, climate change, and skills development.
A collaboration between Kenya and Singapore, who have a history of innovation, is key. Hence, the inclusion of the ICT sector in our strategic partnership between our two countries.
Both our countries placed heavy emphasis on nurturing talent. The MOU on skills development will encourage closer technical cooperation between both countries in areas such as leadership and governance, education, and digitalization.
President Ruto said the ICT agreement will facilitate cooperation on cybersecurity, digitization of government services, and ICT capacity building. For Prime Edition, I am Teresa Mutai.
The government has released Kenya shillings 100 million to support the rehabilitation of learning institutions damaged by bandits who have been terrorizing the North Rift region. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki said the Kenya Defence Forces personnel, that's KDF, who are part of the Operation Maliza Uhalifu, will take part in the reconstruction of the destroyed learning institutions, mostly in the region. He was speaking at Kimalel grounds in Baringo County when he presided over the graduation ceremony of 200 National Police reservists.
Speaking at Kimalel grounds in Baringo County when he presided over the graduation ceremony of 200 National Police reservists, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki said the funds will go towards the rehabilitation of about 30 schools in Baringo County. Kindiki said the Kenya Defence Forces personnel who are part of the Operation Maliza Uhalifu will take part in the reconstruction of the destroyed learning institutions, mostly in the region.
The government has released 100 million for the rehabilitation of all the schools that were affected in Baringo North and Baringo South by banditry. The money has been released, and our officers from the Kenya Defence Forces will help us in the reconstruction.
The CS further said the state will continue working very hard to be able to secure a further 100 million shillings to bring the total to 200 million shillings for the purpose of rehabilitating those schools.
I have visited some of those places. We require a little more money, so we are working hard to be able to secure a further 100 million to bring the total to 200 million for the purpose of rehabilitating those schools.
He also announced that the government will recruit 100 local teachers to ensure the continuity of education in Baringo County. The Interior CS affirmed government's commitment to eradicating banditry for good.
We must make sure that these places remain out of bounds for bandits and criminals for the rest of our time.
Area leaders lauded the move to take part in the construction of the destroyed learning institutions, mostly in the region.
Mimi nasema shukurani rais wetu kwa sababu tumeona sasa hatua, na kwa hakika tangu ushike ushukani hii mambo ya bandits imeanza kwenda chini, sio kama hapo awali, na najua hii itachukua muda kidogo na itaisha.
Vile tunamwona profesa aking'ang'ana akikuja hapa mara mingi na ni waziri, na vile tumemwona hata akienda bunge tunataka pia tumuone Inspector General wa polisi, yule ambaye anasimamia polisi Kenya mzima. Tunataka tumuone wanaelewa vizuri sehemu yetu, and so they will be able to support the security forces.
Mnaona mpaka gari kule nyuma ya gari, kuna wengine wanalinda nyuma ya gari.
The exhumation of bodies at Shakahola Forest has been halted. I will be telling you why after the break.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Kwa majina naitwa Francis Otieno. Nimetoka pale Kayole, Matopeni hapo Spring Valley. Nimekuwa nikicheza loto na kama jinsi ambavyo mumeona siku ya leo nimekuwa mmoja wa washindi. Ninaweza penda kuwahimiza, Loto Moto ni ukweli, jaribu hata wewe. Inaweza kuwa siku yako imefika kama vile yangu imefika.
Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Shinda milioni 2 kila siku kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number weka 757070. Account number andika neno Loto. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000. Lipa kisha subiri draw.
Unataka kusema ujui sisi ni akina nani?
Ni kama sikukumbuki.
Tiffany, sio wewe.
What are you talking about?
Mama Paul hajakwambia. Please, if you find her, tell her Joel is normal.
I pray that God gives you and the rest of the family the strength to pull through this.
But I just want you to know we are in this together.
Amen. Amen.
Is it something that will get me in trouble?
It's the second time I'm getting this question today.
I hope you're not trying to show them that you can be a better daughter-in-law. Really, Gasheri?
Thank you, but your services are no longer needed here.
Unajua mimi hata naweza endelea na job yangu ya content creation. Is that even a career?
Huyu ni kichwa ngumu huyu.
Welcome back. The exhumation of bodies at Shakahola Forest has been halted to pave the way for the start of postmortems of 123 bodies recovered in the second phase of the exercise. This comes as 8 more bodies were exhumed on Thursday and 4 people rescued. The search and rescue mission will, however, continue.
The search and rescue mission at Shakahola Forest bore fruit Thursday as 4 more people were rescued, giving hope to families of 613 others who are yet to account for their kin. However, amid the ray of hope, there was a dampening news of the discovery of 8 more bodies buried in the belly of the forest.
Today, the search and rescue team has been able to rescue 4 people, 3 female and 1 male adults. The exhumations have been going on today, and the forensic team has been able to exhume 8 bodies.
The forensic team will, however, take a break as the focus shifts to conducting a post-mortem on the 123 bodies exhumed in the second phase of exhumation.
The post-mortems will start on Wednesday next week, that is the 24th. At 8 a.m. at the Malindi Sub-County Hospital mortuary.
Addressing the press at the Shakahola Command Center, Coast Region Coordinator Rhoda Onyancha indicated that the search and rescue team will remain on the ground.
With the search and rescue, even as we prepare for post-mortem and even during the time of post-mortem. And even as we do this, it's good to communicate that the area still remains an active crime scene and the 24-hour curfew is on.
Families are still being urged to approach the search and rescue desk to report any persons they fear might be missing as part of the congregation of the controversial preacher Paul Mackenzie. Alan Auko, Prime Edition.
Now let's get to some politics, where Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has urged the opposition to focus on its role of keeping the government on check. Gachagua, who met United Democratic Alliance UDA coordinators from 47 counties in Nairobi, accused the opposition of disrupting the Kenya Kwanza agenda instead of playing its check and balance role.
Speaking during an engagement forum with 47 county coordinators of the United Democratic Alliance in Nairobi, the Deputy President called upon the coordinators and leaders to consult with grassroots representatives to ensure the party grows and remains strong.
We are going to have a functional office in every county with staff. Na ofisi ya chama ya UDA itafunguliwa kama ofisi ya serikali 5 minutes to 8 every day. Na ifungwe saa 11.
Tumeintroduce vitabu za registration. So mnaweza enda manually muandike na register members, and then mnatutumia kwa chama, tuna-upload katika system yetu kama members.
Gachagua also called upon the elected leaders to be more consultative when making decisions concerning the party and the electorates.
Na nyinyi coordinators mpange na officials wenu tukichaguana. We want to have a democratic election from the grassroots. Ianze pale kwa polling station, watu 20. Tutoke hapo tuende kwa ward, tuende constituency, tuende county, all the way to national.
We must never lose focus of the reason why there were so many Kenyans who voted for us, because they believed in our dream, in our plan.
He further defended the current party defection, stating that every political party is allowed by law to sell their agenda to Kenyans without intimidation.
I want to ask you and request you to fungulia watu yote mlango. Let everybody come in. Let everybody come in.
The Deputy President at the same time called upon the opposition to stick to its lane of keeping the government on check.
And we want to ask the people in the opposition, please, take your rightful place and keep the government in check.
Barsai Frederick, Prime Edition.
The government has embarked on a rigorous wetland restoration program across the country. Environment and Climate Cabinet Secretary Soipan Tuya said that the program will incorporate county government, who will map, delineate and publicize boundaries for all wetlands within the jurisdiction.
Environment and Climate Change Cabinet Secretary Soipan Tuya presided over a wetland restoration forum that brought together county executive commissioners in charge of environment and climate change docket across the counties. The CS said that the government is committed in restoring and rehabilitating wetlands that has hugely been affected majorly by human encroachment and pollution.
And rehabilitation of wetlands is a priority and should be done on a catchment scale or as a basin. I am happy this is the approach that the Department of Environment and Climate Change is proposing.
You being our frontline soldiers, we need to get buy-in from this team. It's very key.
Through Adopt Wetland, an initiative that targets to promote massive tree planting along the riparian lands across the 47 counties, to emphasize on the need of revitalizing county CCs in charge of environment and climate change to undertake active roles that will boost its success.
As officers in charge of the sector, please use your good offices to ensure that these commitments are realized.
We have deployed our teams from the headquarters, Directorate of Climate Change, to help you in your plan. I know quite a number of you are doing very well.
The two-day conference comes at the backdrop of drying up of many water bodies across the country. Meanwhile, the Kenya Forest Service has warned farmers under the Plantation Enterprise and Livelihood Scheme, commonly known as Shamba System, against diverting free seedlings to undesignated places.
Pellis is only practiced where it is supposed to be. It is illegal to practice pellis outside our plantation areas, and that is a matter that we've been following up.
Opicho Chemtai for Prime Edition.
Pastor Ezekiel Odera of New Life Church has suffered another major setback Thursday after a Nairobi court pushed the ruling on whether to lift the freeze order on at least 3 of his bank accounts to tomorrow. The Directorate of Criminal Investigations has urged the court not to allow withdrawals of monies in any of the frozen bank accounts. The defense lawyers, however, opposed the move, arguing that the state is intentional in delaying the matter. Ruth Wamboi with the details from the corridors of justice.
The fate of unfreezing bank accounts of the embattled Pastor Ezekiel Odero will be known on Friday, May 19th, 2023.
We will be producing Pastor Ezekiel there.
On Tuesday, Ezekiel's lawyers filed an urgent application seeking to be allowed to withdraw at least 50 million Kenya shillings from his frozen bank accounts.
Trying to gag the owner of the money not to be a party in this matter.
However, investigating officer Martin Munene told the court that unfreezing part or wholly all the accounts will prejudice the ongoing investigations.
Your Honor, they have claimed that the document books, they are voluminous in nature and some have been archived, so they need more time.
Is there a single pronouncement that you have made or sought for in that application relating to Pastor Ezekiel?
That question does not fall within Order 1, 2, and 3.
A move that triggered a heated moment in court from his lawyers, who argue that the state is using delaying tactics.
They've returned to what we call sharp practice, file appeal, to take time to be argued. A ruling will be done.
Classes are quite refreshed in my mind, and I will refresh the memory of the prosecution to indicate to them that this court indeed has the power to review any of its orders.
Trial Magistrate Ben Makekubi has given directions that he will deliver his ruling on the matter tomorrow. Elsewhere, Justice Alfred Mabe has recused himself from a contempt of court proceedings against Sarai Group officials and instead directed that the matter be handled by Justice Josephine Mungare.
I direct that they appear before Mungare J on the 15th of June 2023 to show cause why they should not be sentenced to imprisonment for contempt of court. It is so ordered.
The Uganda-based Sarai Group Limited and 3 others were found in contempt of court orders issued on July 28, 2022 regarding Mumia Sugar lease case. Ruth Wamboi for Prime Edition.
The threat of climate change, biodiversity loss and social inequality took precedence during this year's International Museums Day. The event was characterized by a tree planting exercise amid calls to protect the ecosystem to mitigate the effects of climate change threatening the country's flora and fauna.
Nairobi National Museum in Kenya's capital. Young ones gathered to mark this significant day, a day that provided an opportunity to witness what the Kenyan heritage has to offer. This year's International Museum Day theme was Museums, Sustainability and Well-being. Museums across the globe were encouraged to promote cultural exchange, mutual understanding and sustainable development.
So, as a museum, we are not spared of climate change. It's affecting us. We are seeing some plants and animals get to extinction. We are experiencing new varieties of flora and fauna in our environments. It's a matter of concerns.
Director of Antiquities, Sites and Monuments at the National Museums of Kenya, Frederick Kimathi, said that museums significantly educate the public on global challenges such as climate change, biodiversity loss and social inequality, and that there is need to encourage climate action towards a positive change.
And I was really shocked when I found that the hot springs that we prayed so much in, those hot springs are now submerged in water. The lake level of Lake Bogoria has gone up tremendously. And the road that you drove to the hot springs, maybe 5 years ago, that road now is covered in water.
The National Museums of Kenya aims at contributing to the attainment of sustainable development goals by supporting climate action, fostering inclusivity in tackling social isolation, and improving mental health.
With climate change, you find that there's unusual distribution of species. Species that were once found in very dry areas during the hot season are now being spotted in high altitudes area, which is quite unusual.
International Museum Day is also aimed at encouraging museum professionals to engage with the public and raise awareness about the huge impacts that museums play in the society. As the world marks International Museums Day with the theme Museums, Sustainability and Well-being in relation to climate change, the National Museums now say climate change mitigation starts with you and me. For Prime Edition, I'm Alvin Kaunda.
Indeed, the change you want to see starts with you. It was the end of the road for 3 suspected gangsters who were lynched to death by an irate mob in Lodwar town. The trio are alleged to have robbed 20,000 shillings from a hotel before attempting to flee. Their attempts to flee the scene were thwarted after their getaway strategy flopped. More details in the county briefs.
Peter Murithi, the owner of Seasons Hotel in Lodwar town, recounting the incident, said the robbers fired twice, prompting him to open the cash box.
Tumekaa Lodwar hapa muda mrefu, lakini maneno ya wizi imeendelea kumesidi sana kulingana na kutokana kaunti hapa Lodwar. Wezi wanakuja mchana saa 2 kuiba. Hiyo si ungwana. Serikali wasaidie Lodwar vile wanaendelea maneno yao kwa sababu wizi imesidi.
Confirming the incident, Turkana Central Sub-County Police Commander Lemin Jeru said the robbers' escape plan flopped after their getaway motorcycle developed a mechanical problem and the AK-47 assault rifle in their possession jammed.
Where they managed to get the day sales amounted to about 20,000 Kenyan shillings. In the process, they fired 2 rounds to scare the owner, who gave in and they left the premises. They were trying to get away with a getaway motorbike, which unfortunately failed to ignite.
It was then that the public descended on them. An AK-47 assault rifle with a magazine loaded with 9 rounds of 7.6mm ammunition was recovered from the scene. And a multi-agency team drawn from Aberdare Sub-County has seized bang worth 400,000 inside Drago Forest. Aberdare Sub-County DCC Rukwaro Wandimi said they received a tip-off from the public.
Tumeweza kushoma hiyo bangi. Hatuna suspect, but tunaendelea kutafuta suspect. So yangu kama OCPD ile ilani ningetoa kwamba mwenye anafanya hii kazi serikali sisi haturari. Tutaendelea kushirikiana na KWS na Kenya Forest. Tuwe na patrol nyingi hapa na tutawanasa.
Finally, Kenya Communication of Workers Union KOWU has appealed to the government to move with speed and address the high cost of basic commodities. The Union Secretary General Benson Okwaro emphasized on the need for the government to consider regular review of workers' salary as a way of cushioning them against high inflation.
For the last 1 or 2 years now, the economy has been going down, and there are no indicators that the economy is going to improve. And so from where we sit as student leaders, we are appealing to the government that they need to do everything in place to see that they can cushion the Kenyan workers on how to live better. And the only way of doing it is to do a regular review of salaries.
Aviator instant game. Be a daring pilot and earn by how much high you can lift the plane. The higher you fly, the higher your win. The sky is the limit. Mozart Bet.
Ina mali kwingine naweza tafuta kazi.
Na nikisema nitakutafutia kazi mali nyingine. Niliona tu kifo hivi na macho. Nilisema hata ni appreciate marafiki zangu. Amen. Hata siku nimekuja kukaa. Sawa, kwa heri. Taonana. Madam, outrager.
Amemgeuka kama kinyonga. Inaenda nadanganya.
How much do you want?
28,000 only.
Hey, mom. Wewe jabali, kwani unakubali mama yako akufundishe uongo? Are you sure she's sick? The other day she was hallucinating.
Nilikuwa nikitaka nije nikae kwako hata kama ni wiki moja. Mkiniangalia tu vile niko.
I honestly think she's going mad. Just stop calling.
Give me your phone.
Hapana.
The shame and guilt will not allow him to listen to you.
I'm just tired.
Welcome back. The Scrap Metal Council has revoked the license of 777 collectors after the company was found to be engaging with vandalized scrap metals. The council says it is investigating other companies that are suspected of dealing with vandalized scrap metals. The Scrap Metal Council was formed in 2015 to help regulate the sale of scrap metal in the country and arrest the spiraling cases of vandalism.
In 5 years, Kenya has witnessed a spike in cases of vandalism, with criminals targeting critical infrastructures like the standard gauge railway and high voltage pylons owned by state entities. In January last year, vandals struck the Kiambere-Embakasi high voltage transmission line, plunging the nation into a national blackout. This prompted the government to ban scrap metal trade and directed the Scrap Metal Council to re-register all scrap metal dealers in the country. Today, the Scrap Metal Council has cancelled the license of 777 collectors for engaging in vandalism. The council says it has drafted officers from the Directorate of Criminal Investigation and the Kenya Revenue Authority in a bid to arrest more offenders. Scrap Metal Council Chair Francis Mogo says the council is in the process of employing metal inspectors to help curb the rising cases of vandalism of critical infrastructure. The council further wants the act amended to give it powers to arrest and prosecute vandals. Nduta Mokami for Prime Edition.
It will take the government at least 9 months to commence construction of the first phase of the 100 Dam Initiative. Water and Irrigation Cabinet Secretary Alice Wahome says only potential investors with reasonable cost of construction will be considered for the private-public partnership deals.
Rapid population growth, urbanization and increased economic development has seen the demand for water steadily rise. To address the water scarcity in the country, the government launched an initiative to construct 100 dams through a public-private partnership model. The construction of the first phase of 34 water reservoirs has now attracted several investors who on Thursday met the Water, Sanitation and Irrigation Cabinet Secretary to begin deliberations before the commencement of the projects.
By the country by year stand at 22 billion cubic meters. But as it is now, we are at 11 billion cubic meters per year. And when you look at the per capita for water in this country, we are talking at now 406 cubic meters as opposed to the international standard, which is 1,000.
The Cabinet Secretary says the government is keen on deals that will promote the adoption of innovative technologies and sustainable practices in the water management.
That any investor first who will be interested in doing this work will be obviously safe, will be given free equal opportunity to bring forward their bid and invest in whatever project they have chosen. Obviously, that means there will be some competition, and we shall be looking at the best person placed to do a specific project.
To regulate supply, pricing and delivery, investors will be required to enter into bulk water agreements.
It will obviously be, there will be a joint venture during the period of construction and the period of repayment, so that the return to the investment by the investor is secured, and after that the project of course is taken over by the national government.
Wahome insists that the government will provide tariff structures that are reasonable, fair and offer cost-effective pricing for consumers.
Priority of course will be given to areas that was hit, have maybe larger demands of water, but we are open to maybe the work going on. All this. The process is very long, but we believe 9 months. Some could even take maybe 6 months. As soon as we get the bids, we will be evaluating and identifying the very serious contractors and investors.
Potential investors have until June 6th to present their bids, even as the Ministry of Water insists that it is eager to finalize on agreements and move forward with this crucial initiative to ensure that all Kenyans have access to clean and affordable water. Trevor Ngendo for Prime Edition, Nairobi.
Employers have drastically reduced the amount owed to savings and credit cooperative societies in unremitted deductions in what Cooperatives Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelgoi attributes to mediation by the government. Here's our reporter Benson Rioba with the details.
Employers owed Saccos a combined 4.2 billion shillings in unremitted members' contribution at the end of last year. According to the Cooperative Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui, the amount has drastically been reduced.
Working hard, we know we had a challenge, the COVID challenge. Many employers experienced some financial challenges and they were not able to remit.
Chelugui says the government is engaging employers to remit deductions on time to liquidate Saccos.
150 million is out there.
A number of institutions, parastatals, have not yet remitted the deductions, that is member dues, for almost 2 months, and that is causing a lot of cash flow hardships in the Sacco.
In a raft of measures aimed at strengthening the society, the ministry has started negotiations with Saccos on the contribution percentage for the deposit guarantee scheme.
To give a second cover protection to members' deposit, we need to have deposit guarantee scheme so that any shilling deposited in our Saccos is secured just in case that this Sacco falls or collapses. At least the members do not go home dry.
To further protect members' deposits, a number of Sacco officials are under investigation for misappropriating members' funds.
He is earning 70,000 courtesy of his position in a Sacco somewhere. You can access up to 872 million. It is not right at all.
This emerged during Cusco's 50th anniversary, where Saccos were encouraged to tailor products to the youth and unbanked workers. Benson Ruba reporting for Prime Edition.
Whoa! Cooperative Bank made a net profit of 6.1 billion shillings during the first 3 months of this year. The profit represents a 5.2% growth that the lender has attributed to strategic focus on sustainable growth, resilience and agility.
During the first 3 months of this year, Cooperative Bank says net loans and advances grew by 11% to 360.1 billion shillings. From this, the lender made 17.9 billion shillings in total operating income, which increased by 6.5%. This comprised net interest income that increased by 3.9% to 10.8 billion shillings and total non-interest income that grew by 10.8% to 7.1 billion shillings. On the other hand, total operating expenses increased by 8.8% to 9.8 billion shillings. This was on account of the lender earmarking 1.5 billion shillings for loan loss provisions, which pushed up the bank's loan loss reserve to coverage levels to a high of 72%, up from 69% in 2021. This propelled the lender to a net profit of 6.1 billion shillings, up from 5.8 billion shillings registered during a similar period last year. Of this, the Cooperative Bank of South Sudan made a pre-tax profit of 110 million shillings, which however translated to a monetary loss of 71.3 million shillings attributable to hyperinflation after devaluation of the South Sudanese pound. Managing Director Gideon Muriuki says the lender disbursed 19.2 billion shillings through the MCOP Cash mobile wallet during the period, helping push up non-funded income. Muriuki says the lender has successfully moved 91% of all customer transactions to alternative delivery channels, such as the 24-hour contact center, ATMs, mobile and internet banking, and COP Kwajirani agents. Nduta Mokami for Prime Edition.
Traders are concerned about the tedious logistical challenges occasioned by manual border processes that is undermining the quality of perishable goods. Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry President Richard Ngatia says bureaucracy and duplication of trade licenses between the county and national government agencies is costly and impractical for micro, small and medium-sized enterprises.
Kenya's export is dominated by tea, cut flowers, coffee and titanium ore, raking in $262 million, $766 million, $262 million and $194 million respectively. Even though Uganda is Kenya's largest market, there is still huge opportunity in other markets. Businesses are calling on regulators to ease border barriers that are driving up costs.
When you export your products on a value add, then you are going to earn more profit.
They feel Kenyan businesses cannot fully leverage on the extensive economic diplomacy that the government and private sector have established by opening up markets and negotiated favorable tax regimes.
Identifying issues that our exporters go through.
We are glad that these things are happening. Everyone is playing their role, and if each one of us plays their role effectively, then we can be able to enable and empower our exporters.
They're exploring innovative product development for value addition of export products and diversification of business processes to meet the market demands. As Kenya looks towards expanding its market outreach, traders are expressing their concerns over increasing formalities and bureaucracies that is holding them back from their true export potential. Hibak Said for Prime Edition.
Back for that report. Now, the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry Western Kenya chapter wants the women in business component entrenched in the chamber's memorandum to accord them more voice. Here is our Western Kenya reporter Wycliffe Okech with the details.
The National Chamber of Commerce and Industry is set to hold its national elections on 8th of next month, where the chamber's current president Richard Ngatia will be going head-to-head with his deputy, Dr. Eric Ruto. On Thursday, Ruto held a stakeholders meeting with the Chamber's Kisumu chapter to sell his agenda.
There are quite a number of opportunities at the headquarters, and a number of different large corporations and even international business people usually come seeking for business intelligence information. What we are going to do is that we are going to have a desk, a county desk, at the national office that is going to be talking into the 47 chapters.
It was here that the women members of the chamber challenged the next regime to reinstate the women in business component.
The women in business in the chambers of commerce and industry in Kenya are feeling bad that they have no representation, proper representation in the WIB.
According to Akwacha, women members are not fully involved in the affairs of the business lobby group.
We feel sidelined because you find the men in most of the committees. The women are there, but the participation factor in it is not as good.
We are asking the incoming CP and VCP, bring back women in business position with allocation and resources to be able to help champion capacity building, and even empowering women within the local chapters.
Our promise on this ticket of myself, Dr. Rutan Mustafa, is that on the election date that we've told the members of the chamber to move a motion so that we can be able to bring back the women in business, the national board, and on all the 47 chapters.
Ruto pledged to help rice farmers in Ahero, Kisumu County to package and brand their produce for more revenue. For Prime Edition from Kisumu County, I am Wycliffe Okage.
Ni kubwa, ni mingi, ni tamu, ni yako na ni moto.
Tumengojea sana show ya Kikenya ambayo inatuelewa na inatujali na pia inajumuika nasi katika magumu ya maisha.
Guess what? We have it. The Lotto Moto Show! Uko na uwezo wa kujishindia hadi 2 million Kenyan shillings kupitia draw yetu popote unapotutazama.
Na tuko na haja ya kusikia story na magumu unayoyapitia. Tutakuita kwenye show na tutarahisisha mahali.
Nafasi za wageni watatu zipo katika kila show ambao wanajipatia fursa ya kujichagulia sanduku moja kati ya 12. Kila sanduku liko na zawadi kem na za kipekee.
With lots of fun, lots of prizes and money. Lotto Moto, only on KBC.
Ili kupata sikiza tune hii ya Usini Record, bonyeza star 811 star 396 hash.
Unakata pia kabaya Wakenya mnakuanga nako ya kuweka mtu kwa speaker alafu mnarekodi sauti yake bila ruhusa. Nikipata sauti yangu ina trend huko nje na kuna pesa napata, mtajua mimi mlu yako na roya na sina roya binadamu. Usini Record. Ili kupata sikiza tune hii Usini Record, bonyeza star 811 star 396 hash.
The Mozart Bet Cup enters the semi-finals this weekend as the remaining 4 teams battle for the ultimate prize of representing the country in CAF Confederations Cup. Tusker FC will lock horns with Ulinzi Stars from 12 p.m. while the much-awaited Ingo Derby pitting Kakamega Homeboys and AFC Leopards will kick off at 3 p.m. Catch all the action live on KBC Channel 1 from Nyayo National Stadium. KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
Welcome back. We are still on business. Multinational companies are adopting traditional product distribution channels to expand their outreach and appeal to the low-income consumer market. Machakos Governor Wavinya Ndeti says counties are setting up industrial parks to accommodate such moves that would incorporate small businesses, and tax rebates would be availed.
About 70% of Kenyan value chains and processing is smallholder based, leaving MSMEs to have the biggest access to local markets. These businesses, however, often do not have the capacity to cater to the demand posed.
With proper policy in place, it is possible to generate many job opportunities through creating a conducive environment for investors.
Multinationals are using this as a strategy to gain market share in the local scene through small wholesalers operating stock points and micro distributors who move the products from the stock points to retail shops.
You tell us how many young people you employ, or you take an intern or train them. On that, we can also give you tax rebates. And this is something we're discussing with the county assembly to see how many of our people can be taken in these industries.
Through the route to market strategy, the companies target consumers who are hard to reach through traditional product distribution channels. They say through training, fast-moving goods could be effectively pushed and marketed to remote areas. Ibak Said for Prime Edition.
In 2008, Masi Munene was diagnosed with anemia and doctors advised her to increase her intake of vegetables to boost the red blood cells in her blood. This made her start growing organic vegetables and rearing rabbits in her small plot in Nairobi's Utawala estate. Friends and neighbors admired her urban farming model, and this is how the business Shamba Connect was born, to train those interested in urban farming. With escalating food prices and the prevalent use of dangerous pesticides on food, a lot of city dwellers are now turning to homegrown food. As you can see, it doesn't matter the space that you have. Today, we are getting our hands dirty. You're welcome to join me. On the outskirts of Nairobi, Masi, a 35-year-old businesswoman, runs a farm in the backyard of her acre home. She lives in a gated community in Utawala, an unlikely place for farming, but keeps up to 400 rabbits at a time and grows enough vegetables for her family and for sale all year round. She started her farm after a health scare experience.
I used to have issues with anemia, and also I could not be able to handle vegetables. So whenever I would take vegetables, they would give me a stomach upset that was supposed to have healed my anemia. So after a few years with that struggle of anemia and stomach upsets, I was advised, why don't I try natural vegetables, not the ones that have been that I buy from the market. The vegetables that are just bought from the market, many of them are laced with a lot of pesticides and chemicals, and there's so much research to that talks about how many we use a lot of chemicals in our vegetables that ends up affecting the amount of nutrients in the foods that we eat. And so when I tried my natural vegetables, I found it was very delicious, and it actually helped me to get back to my normal blood count.
Neighbors who were surprised by Masi's output despite her small piece of land asked for training, and the second phase of her business was born. Masi is now training and offering consultancy services on gardening, installing efficient systems, sale of gardening inputs from vegetable seedlings, plant media, fertilizers and pest control products, both organic and inorganic.
For others, they're actually selling to their neighbors. So it's a really good adventure. For a space as small as 2 meters, you are able to create a garden that will hold more than 100 plants. You will be able to harvest 3 times a week, and you can be able to plant anything you want on that garden.
She uses rabbit urine as foliar fertilizer and pesticides, and intercrops her controls with red pepper and onions to control pests and diseases.
We have the rabbit manure and we have the rabbit urine that we use back in the farm. We use home kitchen solutions, such as we mix ginger and garlic and onions and we spray on the plants, and this helps to ward off pests. So we started the business because also it has a lot of benefits. If you look at rabbit meat, it's white meat, it has higher protein content, and many people are able to digest it. In fact, even for children, they prefer that children start with rabbit meat because rabbit meat is very soft and very easy to digest.
Urban farming is also changing the landscape and giving housing project residents another view of community life in the city.
Can be able to have that community gardening, and we have seen that in the places like different places in Nairobi, in different estates, and even the people who are looking for land and looking to buy houses, one of the things they consider most is there a place I can have my little kitchen garden?
The main benefits of urban farming is its adaptability. Urban farms can be set up in spare rooms, backyards, rooftops, balcony, or any spare space. Vertical indoor farms have the potential to yield 50 times more harvest than field crops and can start with as little as 2,000 Kenya shillings. The food security and stable food price you want to see in our nation can start with you. Well, if you are an entrepreneur below the age of 35, or if you know an entrepreneur below the age of 35, do let us know. Would like to cover their story. You could send me a message on my Instagram page. That is Cynthia Nyamai, or on Twitter. Now, Kenya is mobilizing resources for implementation of the integrated Agro-industrial Park projects, an offshoot of the larger third industrial development decade for Africa framework. The Principal Secretary for Industry, Juma Mukwana, says the initiative will strengthen the country's manufacturing capabilities to promote sustainability.
The government aims to increase the contribution of manufacturing to the economy from 9.2% in 2017 to 30% by the year 2030. Among the sectors that are expected to drive this growth are the textile and leather sectors, fish and agro-processing, oil, mining and gas, iron and steel, the construction industry, and the information and communications technology sector. To this end, the Principal Secretary for Industry, Juma Mukwana, says studies are currently being undertaken in integrated agro-industrial parks in Ethiopia that will help provide a receptive business environment. This, he says, will ensure agricultural output is maximized, increase farmers' incomes, and develop more sustainable livelihoods. Furthermore, he called on UNIDO to expand their program for country partnerships to other African countries to ensure widespread inclusive and sustainable development across the country. He encouraged UNIDO to align the deliverables of the third industrial development decade for Africa with those of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Dr. Mukwana noted that in 2022, more than 250 projects valued at 8.9 billion shillings, excluding interregional and global portfolios, were under implementation in Africa under the wider framework for the third industrial development decade for Africa. Nduta Mokami for Prime Edition.
Kenya is seeking to increase horticulture exports via the sea by 50% by the year 2030. The European Union says increasing horticulture exports by sea will not only cut transport costs, but will ensure Kenya produce fetch a premium in the international market by conforming to the high consumer standards.
Currently, only 5% of Kenyan flowers are exported via the sea, which is a cheaper shipment method. The government and the private sector are seeking to increase export of horticulture via the sea by 50% in the next 7 years. Players say air freight costs an average of $2.2 per kilo, while a container by sea costs $7,000. Industry players say sea freights will reduce both the carbon footprint and the cost of exports. The push for sustainable transportation comes from the European Union, where consumers are concerned radically on decarbonization of value chains that deliver fresh produce to their supermarket shelves and dining tables. The support from the European Union is part of a 3.8 billion shillings export enhancement program that aims at increasing the global market share for Kenyan horticultural produce. Horticulture is one of the leading export earners for Kenya and earned the country 152.3 billion shillings in 2022. Benson Druba reporting for Prime Edition.
The Office of the Data Commissioner is currently handling 800 cases of data breach amid efforts to show up sensitization programs to boost compliance of data protection regulations. Our senior reporter Regina Manyara engages Data Commissioner Immaculate Kassiet on inroads made in fostering adoption of the new data protection law.
Information, communication and technology is driving the fourth industrial revolution. But the question is matters of data protection. Good evening, I'm Regina Manyara and this is Prime Edition. Tonight we're going to be talking about data protection, and our guest this evening is none other than the Data Commissioner Immaculate Kassiet. Welcome and thank you for your time. 2 years in since operationalization of the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, what would you say are your key milestones?
This office came into force in November 2020, And I would say some of the key milestones we've had, of course, we've had an opportunity. We got the regulations from the Data Protection Act. We have 3 sets of regulations. We've been able to operationalize the office. Initially, we started from a small office at Communication Authority. We now are based at Brigham Towers, with operations it's expanding to 13 regions. But for now, we are in 3 regions by the end of this financial year. The other key milestone for us is we've been able to register over 2,200 data protection data controllers. We've admitted over 800 complaints as an office. We've joined 3 key international organizations. One is the National Network for African Data Protection Authorities, where just last week in Burkina Faso we have been selected as the first vice chair, and will be voted to host next data protection for NADPA assembly here. We are a member of GPA as an office. In addition to that, we have a strategy for 3 years that we've been able to put in place. As an office also, we have been able to recruit staff. As an office, we've been able to create numerous awareness creation. I could go on and on in terms of an office, but I have to say it's been quite a quick run through in terms of our achievements. And of course, being here today to create awareness with the media is also one of our own achievements.
What has been the major challenge in having a data protection ecosystem?
I would say lack of awareness, and also then that is mostly because it's very new in the area. We are so used as an African culture. We are oral. We like sharing a lot of our information, so we are a sharing culture. So now suddenly we are telling people, hey, hold on, you don't have to share all your information in this tissue area. So I would say that is one of the issues. Change of culture, awareness creation. Of course, you can see a sense of change. People tend to resist. People think, oh, why another new law? Why on data protection? Are you going to interfere with innovation? Those are some of the challenges that we see as an office.
You say you have registered over 2,200 data controllers and processors and had over 800 admissions in terms of cases. What does this say in regard to matters of compliance?
It's actually mandatory. Once the law came into force in 2019, it became compulsory for data controllers and data processors. And for us, when the regulations were gazetted, which was last year, July, it's now compulsory for every data controller and data processor, anyone collecting personal data, to register with the Office of the Data Commissioner. It's a requirement. And the reason is, if you're collecting personal information, we need to know as Kenyan citizens that our information is safe. The place to start that journey is by registration as for a data controller and data processor. Compliance it's a whole set of things that you need to do. Are you conducting your data protection impact assessment? Have you embraced data protection by default or by design? When you collect personal data, when you process personal data, when you store personal data, when you dispose personal data, are you making sure that the entire chain, my personal data, is safe? Because the flip side of it is internet trolling, mental health issue, suicide we can see. I mean, we don't want that to happen. You don't want to be out there and your private information is everywhere. You want it secure because it's personal to you.
Where do we draw the line when it comes to matters of privacy as well as data protection?
Actually, we have received over 2,000, but the ones we have admitted are 8,000. They are different stages. We have issued, they are either in scrutiny stage, investigation stage, and because our investigation is supposed, a complaint is supposed to be handled within 90 days. There's a back and forth between us and the person or the complainant and the data controller so that we get, so there are different stages, I have to say.
What role is the Office of the Data Commissioner playing when it comes to matters of the digital superhighway?
The digital superhighway, basically, from an infrastructure perspective, is to make sure Kenya have access to internet, to be able to do e-commerce, to be able to access the market, to be able to communicate from every corner of the country. When they communicate, it's about personal information being shared. Our work is to make sure that we are regulating and making sure that that information as it's being collected, that it is safe and secure, to give that assurance to the Kenyan public.
There's a proposal to do a surveillance by the Kenya Revenue Authority and telecommunications companies to just monitor transactions, especially on the mobile money platforms. What is your take in regard to that?
The work, there are various ways of why data is collected. It's either because of consent, lawful purpose, authority, public interest, and many of these government institutions fall within that. Our work, therefore, is to make sure, even as they do their duty, as provided for by law in terms of collecting personal data, they do it within the confines of the Data Protection Act. Our work is to make sure it is safe. How we make sure it's safe is by inspections, audits, investigation in case we receive a complaint, awareness creation. That is how we make sure your data is safe. And by having us here as a regulator, we are here to make sure that your information is safe and safeguarded by those who collect it on your behalf.
What action does your office take in the event of a data breach that goes unreported?
In the event that we are conducting our regular audit or inspection and we discover that this was never reported to us, you're likely to suffer the consequences as when we decide how much fine to impose on you. Reporting data breach is encouraged because it is a way of actually nikujipima, or what I would say, looking at yourself and saying, these were my faults and this is how I need to rectify. People need to see it from that perspective because you're dealing with personal information. It's not just anything. It's about ethical way of doing business. So when you report, it's an opportunity for you to make sure your systems are more strengthened. And when we're ready to report, when we eventually catch up with you, the consequences are well stipulated in the law.
Is it time for media houses to also, register as data controllers and have a data policy?
Yes, indeed. All media houses are supposed to register as data controllers because they collect sensitive personal information. Yes, indeed, time has come. Even though the Data Protection Act does not make it compulsory to have a data protection officer, it is good practice.
Where are we at when we say, or rather when we talk about data portability?
What data portability means is if you're in a hospital in the village, you should be able to carry your information if you go to another hospital in urban areas. You should be able to access your information and move with it. Whether it is any institution, whether an insurance company, whether a bank, and so on and so forth. Data portability is to allow you to carry your information from point A to point B. I would say that's a right that is provided for data protection, for data subject. And right now, I would not say we have any statistics in terms of data portability.
Why is it important that Kenya will be hosting the NEDPA conference next year?
NEDPA gives us an opportunity to showcase what we have, that we as a country, as a regional hub, we've been able to do to make sure that our space ecosystem is safe for purposes of more innovation, because we are securing personal data. Two, we have some of the best export as a country. We in digital export, we have M-Pesa, which is one of the highly rated globally as setting the pace, a trailblazer on apps. Two, we have a big data center here, either by Konza or the African Data Center. It's an opportunity to showcase what we have as a country and what people can do. Three, we have 6 undersea cable, which has made easy access. So as a country, we have an opportunity to showcase how it is easier to do businesses as far as connectivity is concerned. Of course, we are a tourism destination. This is an opportunity for us to market our country. Not just, we are usually used to the traditional tourism, but now we are tourists in terms of digital tourism. Yeah.
Which institutions or entities are exempt on matters data protection?
There is nobody exempt in terms of the data protection. However, although there is no absolute exemption, journalists are exempt because you see they do their work if we say journalists are must adhere to data protection, it means they cannot share information. but they're exempt. The other one is for statistical purposes. Those are the two largely I can talk about. And of course, for another reason why people can be exempt if it's for national security, or the other reason is for public interest. Those are the three large areas in terms of exemption. And of course, if you're sharing data for your own home use, or if you belong to a club, those are some of the exemptions provided for under the Data Protection Act.
It's very common accessing, hotels, institutions. Kenyans are required to leave behind their details, including their national identification cards. At what point does it become a breach?
Let me give it an example. If, for instance, you came to this hotel and they are collecting personal information at the reception, they're supposed to secure it. If an unwarranted person accesses that information and they did not have the credential or the permission, it becomes a data breach.
How far does your office's mandate stretch?
There are cases in court on multinationals which we are joined, and we are responsible for personal data, whether processed by local company or multinationals.
Where do you see Kenya when it comes to matters of data protection in the next 5 years?
I see a country where personal data will be respected, where businesses will focus on doing business in an ethical manner, where we will treat personal data as not as commodities, but we will take the rights of the data subject into account, where doing businesses will thrive because they will take the considerations of the data subject. As an office, I see the awareness growing, I see the office growing, I see an increase in terms of consciousness of the use of data and how it is being utilized. Just like is the case in Europe or in other parts of the world where data is being taken much more seriously. Since it's the new oil, we must use it responsibly.
Well, there you have it. We have been speaking to the Data Commissioner, Immaculate Kasait, and it still remains that data is oil and such. Data protection is key. I'm Regina Manyara. You've been watching Prime Edition.
Kwa majina mimi ni Brian Bosiri, natoka Maringo Makadara. Experience yangu basically kwa show ni kwa fan. Card first nilikuwa nimechagua box number 10 na 7. Nikaacha box number 10 na ndiko na grand prize. Na za jua wacheze Loto Moto ni real. Unaweza kupata chance ya kushinda pesa poa ama great prizes.
Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Shinda milioni 2 kila siku kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number weka 757070. Account number andika neno Loto. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000. Lipa kisha subiri draw.
Welcome back. Water companies in the UK have apologized for repeated sewage spills and pledged to invest £10 billion over a decade in an attempt to quell public anger over the pollution in seas and rivers. The companies will triple their existing investment plans to plow funds into the biggest modernization of sewers since the Victorian era to reduce spills of overflowing sewage.
Environment Agency figures earlier this year showed there were 300,000 sewage spills in 2022, averaging 824 a day, spending on more than 350,000 miles of sewer comes on top of the current 3.1 billion euros being spent between 2020 and 2025. Shareholders in water companies will initially fund the investments. However, the cost will be recouped from customers through unspecified increases in their bills determined by regulators, in a move which threatens to add further pressure to household costs. Investment will see new facilities built to hold surges in rainwater, increased capacity for sewage treatment works, measures to reduce rainfall entering sewers, and fixing misconnected pipes from properties. Elsewhere, China's major excavator manufacturers reported an increase in exports in the first 4 months of 2023, industry data showed. From January to April, exports of China's major excavator makers rose 12.2% year-on-year to 37,902 units. Domestic sales of this equipment, however, declined 43.5% from the previous year during the same period. In April alone, excavator exports came in at 9,259 units, rising 8.9% year-on-year. Finally, Telcom's giant BT is to cut up to 55,000 jobs in the UK and globally by the end of the decade as it cuts costs. Up to a fifth of those cuts will come in customer services as staff are replaced by technologies including artificial intelligence. The headcount reduction for the current workforce of 130,000 includes staff and contractors. Chief Executive Philip Johnson said that by the end of the 2020s, BT will have a much smaller workforce. It comes after Vodafone said it would axe a tenth of its staff over the next 3 years, creating 11,000 jobs. The BT announcement was made as it reported a 12% drop in profits of 1.7 billion euros for the year to April.
Nafasi yako ya kuwa mdosi wako. Jiunge na washindi tufanye biashara. Kuwa mshindi. Multibet.
Hey, Buda. Umekama na mazawadi za mafanse? Wachana na hizi. Nataka nikuambia kwamba Dunda ndio hivyo tena imerejea ndani ya KBC Channel 1 kuanzia Ijumaa hii itakuwa ndani. Au niaje bro?
Nakwambia maswala, michakato, habari, mitazamo, mahojiano na masuala yote ya sport unayopokea moja kwa moja kutoka Dunda ndani ya KBC Channel 1 kila siku ya Ijumaa.
Viwanjani. Na ndio sababu nakufahamisha kwamba mtu wangu bana kuanzia Ijumaa hii. Yaani tunakuletea soka ya humu nchini, barani Afrika na zaidi ya yote kutoka kule ughaibuni. Sawa sawa. Lakini yote tisa bana, usisahau ya kwamba mashabiki pia huku nako hatujawaacha nyuma. Au sio? Zawadi hapa ni
bila
free of charge.
Yaani bila malipo.
Kila shabiki atakuwa anapata zawadi. Ndio sababu nakwambia kwamba kuanzia Ijumaa hii Dunda viwanjani ndani ya KBC Channel 1. Mambo moto moto, au sio?
Sports News is brought to you by Multibet.
Kurumisha ndege.
Aviator instant game. Be a daring pilot and earn by how much high you can lift the plane. The higher you fly, the higher your win. The sky is the limit. Multibet.
A very good evening to you. My name is Daniel Wahome and welcome to Prime Edition Sport. And the Multibet Cup will enter the semi-final stage this weekend at the Nyamai Stadium. Tusker FC will play against Ulinzi Stars in the first semi at noon, while Kakamega Homeboys clash against AFC Leopards in the other semi-final that has been dubbed as the Ingo Derby.
Ulinzi Stars will be aiming to reach this year's Multibet Cup final when they face Kenya Premier League leaders Tusker FC this Saturday. The Soldiers reached the semi-finals after defeating Sofapaka 5-4 on post-match penalties. On the other hand, Tusker FC beat KCB 2-0. Meanwhile, AFC Leopards will play Kakamega Homeboys in the second semi-final. Ingwe overcame coastal side Bandari FC 3-0, while Kakamega Homeboys thrashed Kariobangi Sharks 6-1. The teams will be aiming to win 2 million shillings prize money, as well as represent Kenya in the CAF Confederations Cup. Meanwhile, Peter Karuma Getukia, a small-scale Mitumba trader from Nakuru County, is the latest winner of the Multibet biggest 20 million shillings daily super jackpot. The latest millionaire, who has been wagering for the last 5 years without much success, will live to remember May 9th, 2023, arguably for the rest of his life, as it is the day he predicted all 16 super jackpot games correctly. Karuma becomes the second winner of the daily super jackpot after self-employed mechanic David Ngugi, who walked away with a similar amount in April.
Nilikuwa kwa nyumba nikizifuatilia. Sasa wakati nilipoiona zimeingiana zote kwa hiyo moja, sasa ikabidi sasa nitulie kwanza, alafu ningojee kama kuna information tasikia, kama kuna information kutoka kwa mzazi. Mtu yeyote na bet asife moyo, akiwekelea na maombi pia, akiwekelea na maombi pia, na kusimama na kazi ya Mungu.
We have two jackpots, the one for 16 games and the one for 20 games, weekly jackpot for 200 million shillings that we are hoping to get a winner soon to give out that mega jackpot prize. So we have given our customers those two options, but we encourage our players also to bet responsibly and to bet with what they can afford to lose.
The 20 million daily super jackpot allows the betting of 16 pre-selected games with a minimum stake of 20 shillings.
And that is powered by this, is the one that Peter Gitukia won today, and that's the story we had. Now, moving on is the defending champions KCB and Kenya Pipeline women's volleyball teams have qualified for the quarterfinals of the ongoing 2023 Africa Women's Volleyball Club Championship in Nabuel, Tunisia. KCB booked their place in the quarterfinals after beating NCS of Nigeria by straight sets of 25-14, 25-12 and 25-15. Meanwhile, Kenya Pipeline defeated Diofior of Senegal by 3-0 of 25-17, 25-12 and 25-16 to qualify for the quarterfinals of the continental event. Kenya is represented by the Kenya Port Authority men's team, while African women champions KCB and reigning domestic champions Kenya Pipeline are taking part in the women's competition. Now, pool has been officially launched as a professional sport in Kenya. The Kenya Pool Governing Body, KPBF, has commenced a process to select a team that will represent Kenya in an international pool event set to be held later this year in South Africa. The team, which will comprise of 5 men and 5 women, will represent the country at the All-Africa Pool Games set to be held in South Africa in October this year. The Pool Games have been organized by the All-Africa Pool Association, AAPA, of which Kenya, through the KPBF, is a member. Speaking during the launch of KPBF tournament, Director Morgan Mutua said that time has come for pool to be recognized as a professional sport in Kenya because it carries immense benefits to an individual. The launch is also aimed at building a conversation about pool and to shape public opinion on it.
The team that will be selected from the selection process will have the chance to represent the country in October at Johannesburg. We'll be playing against other African teams that are already starting their selection process also.
Now, Fiston Mayele starred as Young Africans, aka Yanga, became the first Tanzanian club to reach a CAF Confederation Cup final after beating South African side Marumo Gallants by 2-1 last night. The Tanzanian team will face Algeria's USM Alger in the 2-legged final match on the 28th of this month and the 3rd of next month.
Yanga qualified for the final of the CAF Confederations Cup after beating South African side Marumo Gallants 4-1 on aggregate, having built a 2-0 semi-final first leg lead 7 days ago. Young Africans will host the first leg of the final against USM Alger of Algeria on the 28th of this month, with the return leg set to be held on the 3rd of next month. USM defeated Sacco Mimosas of Ivory Coast 2-0 in Algiers to qualify for the final. History will be created no matter who triumphs in the final, with the winner set to pocket $1,250 million. No Algerian side has ever won the CAF Confederations Cup, an equivalent of the UEFA Europa League.
Now, Nine holders Real Madrid have been eliminated from the UEFA Champions League after they were thrashed 4-0 by Manchester City in their second leg semi-final match played last night at the Etihad Stadium. City will now face Inter Milan in the final match set to be played on the 10th of next month at the Atatürk Olympic Stadium in Istanbul, Turkey.
Julian Alvarez leading City's fourth in the first minute of added time to confirm a 4-0 Olympic Stadium in Istanbul, Turkey on the 20th of June.
Don't just...
Well, and that's the sport for tonight. And remember that it's going to be a very big weekend. Remember, Saturday from noon, KBC Channel 1 and also the English service of KBC, Radio Taifa, Ingo FM, Pwani FM, Minto FM will be broadcasting the Mozart Bet semi-finals. Do not miss that action. It will be live on radio. And if you're traveling, don't watch TV just in case you crash. Listen to our radio stations. My name is Daniel Wahome. Have a good evening.
Sports News was brought to you by Mozart Bet.
Nafasi yako ya kuwa mdosi wako. Jiunge na washindi tufanye biashara. Kuwa mshindi. Mozart Bet.
Great advice there from Wahome, and for all of us who are excited with the Mozart Bet Cup. Now, Andrew has been asking if we can have more stories on youth and entrepreneurship. Well, we'll still be having one story for you, and we'll try our best to have it at least every single Thursday. That's all from me and the rest of the team. We wish you a very good night.
Kwa majina naitwa Irene Dunge. I'm a business lady. Nafanyanga biashara hapa Adams. Lotomoto is ready.